I've never been afraid of being alone. Not really. I actually enjoy it, the stillness, the quiet, the space to think. I grew up in places where you didn't lock your doors until bedtime, where the worst thing to happen was your neighbor's dog tearing through your flower beds. But what happened that gray November afternoon? It changed something in me. Now, every time I hear gravel crunch under tires, I freeze. I was house-sitting for my aunt while she visited friends out of state, so she trusted me with her place. The house is set a little back from the road, typical suburban Oklahoma layout. Long driveway, large front yard, quiet neighbors who keep to themselves. The kind of place where nothing ever happens. It was meant to be a calm week. Feed her cats, water a few plants, bring in the mail. The kind of favor you say yes to without thinking twice. The first 2 days were uneventful. I even kind of liked it, just me. A few streaming shows, her overly affectionate Tabby, and total silence. That third day, though, something felt off from the start. The sky had that thick, low-hanging grayness, the kind that makes 2 p.m. look like dusk. A light drizzle misted the windows. No wind, no birds, just stillness. I was in the living room, folding laundry with some lo-fi music playing softly in the background. The blinds were up. I like natural light, even on days like that. Her living room window faces the long gravel driveway, maybe 40, 50 feet to the road. I was enjoying the fresh air from the cracked window. Then I heard gravel crunching. It wasn't loud, but it wasn't a sound I expected. I paused my music and stood perfectly still. Another crunch. Tires, slowly rolling over gravel. I leaned toward the window, peering between the slats, and saw a silver SUV pulling into the driveway. Not just pulling in, turning sideways as if trying to block the exit. At first, I thought maybe it was a delivery, but the vehicle was unfamiliar. There was no delivery logos, no markings or even flashing lights. I felt my stomach tighten. That's not normal. The engine shut off, and for a few moments, the car just sat there, parked, silent, fog collecting on the windows. Then, the driver's door opened. A man stepped out. He looked average, late 40s maybe, ball cap, hoodie, faded jeans, nothing flashy. But there was something about his posture. Too casual, too slow. He didn't look around like someone delivering. Didn't check his phone. Didn't carry a clipboard or a box or anything that would suggest a reason to be there. Instead, he walked slowly toward the garage. And then, he tried the handle. I crouched beneath the window, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The cats had fled upstairs. My phone was already in my hand, but I couldn't look away from the edge of the window pane. The garage door didn't open. It was locked, thankfully. But he didn't knock or call out. He just stood there, testing the handle. After a few seconds, he let go, turned, and calmly walked to the front porch. Right up to the door. No knock. No doorbell. No sound. I crept to the window, low and quiet, peeking through the blinds just enough to see. He was standing there, hands in his pockets, staring at the door like he knew someone was behind it. He didn't move, didn't fidget, didn't shift his weight, just staring, for over a minute. My breath caught in my throat. Was he waiting for me to come outside? Was he listening? Then, slowly, he turned and walked back to his car. I stayed frozen until I heard the door shut. He backed out halfway down the driveway. But then, he stopped, like he was thinking. And then, he drove off slowly, casually, like he wanted to make sure I was watching. When he was finally gone, I rushed to the door, locked the deadbolt, double-checked the garage, then pulled up the footage from the doorbell cam. That's when I realized that he had intentionally parked in that position to block the view from the street. That's what really got me. It wasn't random. He didn't just pull into the wrong driveway. This was calculated. I called the non-emergency line and gave them the details. They took down what I said, and the video, but their tone sounded like this wasn't the first report like this. Later that evening, I posted a still from the video to a local neighborhood group. Within an hour, a woman a few blocks away messaged me privately. He was at my place last week. Same car. Same guy. Tried our back gate. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just some harmless weirdo. This was predatory. A chill ran through me. Because if I hadn't been there to watch him, if that garage door hadn't been locked, if I'd opened the door without thinking, what would have happened? I barely slept that night. Every time the heater clicked on or a car passed in the distance, I jolted upright. I kept replaying it in my head. His hands in his pockets. That long stare. The way he drove off like it was all part of the plan. After that week, I never left the blinds fully open again. I started locking the doors even when I was inside. I bought cameras for my own place, upgraded my locks, and even got motion lights. That house, my aunt's, still feels safe during the day. But even now, when I visit her and hear the crunch of gravel, I freeze. And I remember that slow-turning SUV. And the man who stood on the other side of the door. Not knocking, not delivering, just waiting. I live in a small studio apartment, just one door in, one window out. Yeah, it's tiny, but I liked it that way. It made me feel safe, like nothing could really surprise me in such a small space. I always double lock the door. Deadbolt first, then the chain. It made me feel secure. It was a normal Wednesday night. I'd had a long day of classes, and I was really tired. All I wanted was to peel off my jeans, collapse into bed, and not speak to another human until morning. When I reached my apartment door, I noticed something weird. It wasn't shut all the way, just barely open, like someone didn't close it properly. I paused. My first thought was that I forgot to lock it. It's happened before, especially on rushed mornings. I was already coming up with excuses in my head. Maybe I was running late, maybe I got distracted. I stood there for a few seconds longer, staring, with my fingers still on the cold knob, trying to shake the sinking feeling crawling up my spine. Then I pushed the door open and stepped in. Everything looked the same. Nothing was overturned or out of place. There was no sign of anyone. Still, I checked. Closet, bathroom. I just told myself that I was being dramatic. I locked the door this time, made sure of it, then slipped into some sweats and tried to relax. Threw on Netflix, poured a bowl of cereal to watch Modern Family. But something felt off. The kind of off that only gets louder when the room goes quiet. Still, I chalked it up to stress and fatigue. I turned off the lights and crawled into bed, trying to will myself to sleep. It was dead silent, but not the kind that lets you sleep. The silence kept ringing in my ears, as if it wanted me to hear something I shouldn't. And I did. I heard it, breathing, right from underneath me. At first, I told myself it was the fridge, or maybe my own breath bouncing weirdly off the walls. But then I held my breath, and the breathing didn't stop. It was low, controlled and steady. Something, or someone, was under my bed. My whole body froze. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to move, didn't want to make a sound. Whoever was under there, they weren't shifting or moving. They were just waiting. I thought about my phone, but I couldn't reach for my phone without moving. And if I moved too suddenly, what would they do? I also couldn't run without jumping off the bed. So, I lay there completely still for what felt like hours. Heart pounding so loud I thought it might give me away. Then I remembered, my pepper spray was on my keychain, on the nightstand. I moved as slowly as I could, inching my fingers toward the keys. I touched the keys. They jingled barely. Then the breathing stopped. That was the moment I realized this wasn't some prank. It wasn't in my head. There was someone there. Before I could even move, a hand, a real human hand, shot out from under the bed and grabbed my ankle. I screamed, louder than I knew I could, and kicked. The hand slipped off. I grabbed the keys swiftly and sprayed blindly underneath. I rolled off the other side of the bed in a panic, crashing into the nightstand. My keys hit the floor. My heart was pounding in my ears, louder than anything else in the room. I ran for the door, forgetting I had locked it. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't even get the chain off. Behind me, I heard movement, like something crawling out from under the bed. I turned, and I saw him. It was Ethan, my ex. He looked off. His face was thinner, like he hadn't eaten properly in weeks. His hair was longer and unwashed, but it was definitely him. I hadn't seen him in months. We broke up after things got weird. He was obsessive, jealous, always needing to know where I was all the time. I had blocked him, changed my routine, even told campus security. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me like I was a stranger. Then he smiled. "You still sleep on the left side," he said, soft, like we were picking up some old conversation. That sentence broke me. He'd been watching me. I don't know how many nights he was under there. Could have been just tonight, could have been more. Could have been while I slept. Changed. 8. I backed toward the door, finally getting the chain off with a loud clatter, and swung it open. I ran. Didn't even stop to grab my phone. I was barefoot, in my hoodie and sweats, running down the hallway to the neighbor's door. I was banging before I even thought of what to say. Mrs. Levine opened up. I barely got the words out. "Please, call 911. The police showed up pretty quick. They checked the area, took my statement, and promised to file a report. But Ethan was gone. They checked the apartment. They said the lock hadn't been tampered with. He must have slipped in sometime that day, maybe when I left for class. Under the bed, they found a hoodie I'd given him years ago, folded like it meant something. Next to it, a half-empty water bottle, and this part makes my stomach turn. A pillow. He was planning to stay. Later, the cops said they couldn't do much because there was no assault, no stolen item, no break-in or sign of forced entry, nothing prosecutable. Just a trespassing report. A footnote. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I asked, how do I press charges on someone who isn't here anymore? He was off the grid. Had been since the restraining order 2 years ago. No phone, no social media, no job, no paper trail. And now, just gone. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. Campus moved me to emergency housing, and I never went back to that apartment. I haven't lived alone since. I can't sleep unless I or someone checks under the bed first. Therapy helps, but I still flinch at night noises. Still wake up at 3 a.m. thinking I hear breathing where there shouldn't be any. You know how people say, lock your doors and you'll be safe. Yeah, I did lock mine, and he was already inside. I've always loved the quiet. After moving to Billings, Montana, a couple of years ago, I made a conscious decision to find a place just outside the busier part of town. A modest duplex, one level, clean and cozy. Nothing extravagant, but it had what I needed, space for me and my dog, Nala, and peace. I worked long hours at the hospital, rotating night shifts. Nursing isn't exactly gentle on your mental energy, so having a quiet space to come home to felt like a little slice of salvation. But in May of 2023, that sense of peace shattered. It began with little things. I know how that sounds, like every cliché horror movie ever. But it really was little things. My box of Cheerios not where I left it, the bathroom light on when I was sure I turned it off, even the thermostat was off by a few degrees sometimes. Small inconsistencies I kept brushing off as work fatigue. After all, my job drains me. It was easy to believe I was just forgetting things. Nala, though, she was the first real warning. She started sleeping in the hallway instead of my bed, facing the attic door. Some nights, I'd find her standing completely still, staring straight up at it, with her tail down and ears up. Her stare wasn't casual, she was fixated. One night, I caught her growling at it, low and steady. That kind of growl dogs only make when they sense something that shouldn't be there. Still, I rationalized. Maybe a raccoon got in. Maybe it was a squirrel. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that I started noticing items actually missing. A protein bar here, a bottle of Gatorade there. Again, nothing dramatic, just enough to make me doubt myself. Then came the sour smell. It's hard to describe. A mixture of old sweat, something moldy, and decay. I'm a nurse. I've smelled death before. And this wasn't that, but it wasn't right. I scrubbed the apartment top to bottom that weekend. Took the trash out twice, cleaned the fridge shelves. I even pulled the stove and washer away from the wall. Still, the smell remained. It came and went, lingering strongest in the hallway, right near the attic door. I mentioned it to my landlord during a casual conversation, asking if anyone had accessed the crawl space lately. He said no. You're the only one with keys to that unit, he reminded me. That was supposed to be reassuring. But it wasn't. The next night, I was sitting in my living room around midnight, catching up on some charting for work. That's when I heard the creak. A light, slow creak. Not from the floor. From above. Nala barked. A sharp, panicked sound. Her body stiffened, and her eyes locked on the ceiling vent. There was definitely someone, or something, moving up there. I didn't sleep that night. I sat upright on the couch, clutching a flashlight and kitchen knife, with my eyes and ears fixated on the ceiling. Every gust of wind outside made my heart stop. The following morning, I climbed onto a chair in the hallway and pushed up the attic access panel. It felt like peeling back the lid on something I didn't want to see. At first, it looked normal: insulation, wooden beams, dust. But then, my flashlight caught something reflective. A water bottle, a McDonald's wrapper, a balled-up sleeping bag, and next to it, a pair of eyes, blinking. I screamed. I fell backward off the chair, crashing into the hallway wall. Nala was already barking wildly at this point. I scrambled to my feet, slammed the attic panel shut, and locked myself in the bedroom with my phone. The 911 dispatcher was calm. I wasn't. I could barely form coherent sentences. When the police arrived minutes later, they entered cautiously with their guns drawn. It only took them a few minutes to find him. It was a man, probably in his late 20s, disheveled, gaunt, covered in dust and insulation. He didn't resist. He didn't even try to run. He just climbed down slowly, hands up, and said, "I wasn't gonna hurt nobody." According to the police, he had broken in through an exterior maintenance hatch weeks ago. He'd been living in my attic since at least early May, watching me, waiting until I left for work to come down and eat, use the bathroom, even sleep in my bed occasionally. He wore some of my clothes, ate my food, drank my water, and always made sure to return everything to almost the way it was. That's why it took so long for me to notice. They found bags of my missing items, snacks, keys, a scarf, even one of my journals. He'd read through pages of it, circling entries in pen, my thoughts, my feelings, my routines. The officer told me later he'd been hiding in other homes before mine, always targeting single women living alone. He wasn't violent, but he was unstable, and his presence alone was dangerous. For days afterward, I didn't feel safe anywhere. I stayed with a friend, jumped at every sound, checked the locks multiple times before bed. Nala wouldn't even go near the hallway where the attic entrance had been. Eventually, the landlord replaced the panel and sealed the hatch from the outside. But it didn't change what happened. It didn't undo the reality that for weeks, I had been unknowingly cohabiting with a stranger. It still messes with me. To this day, I think about how close he must have been, listening to me talk on the phone, watching me undress, maybe even standing over me as I slept. And I never heard a thing. I now have cameras, motion detectors, reinforced locks. But most importantly, I have a new habit. Now every night, without fail, I check the attic. Because what happened to me wasn't a movie. It wasn't a nightmare. It was real. And sometimes the real things are the most terrifying. I bought the house in Maple Ridge because it checked every box. 3 bedrooms, quiet street, good schools nearby, not that I had kids yet, but Emily and I were planning. The garage was oversized, which meant I could finally set up a proper workshop. Everything felt right. The sensor started acting up 3 weeks after we moved in. You know those little red lights on garage door sensors? The ones that blink when something's blocking the door from closing? Mine would randomly flash red around 11 p.m., sometimes later. I'd be brushing my teeth or reading in bed, and I'd catch that red blink through the hallway. Annoying, but not alarming. I figured it was bugs. Or dust. The garage had been closed up for months before we bought the place. Emily noticed it too. "There it goes again," she said one Thursday night, pointing down the hall. "Think we should call someone?" "It's probably just the sensors getting old," I told her. "I'll clean them this weekend." I never got around to it. Emily left for a nursing conference in Seattle that Sunday. 5 days. I'd be holding down the fort alone, which honestly sounded nice. I loved my wife, but 5 days of frozen pizzas and falling asleep to basketball games? Solid plan. The first night she was gone, I stayed up late in the living room. Around midnight, I headed to bed. Flipped off the lights. 10 minutes later, maybe 15, I heard it. The garage door opener. Not the big rolling sound of the door actually opening. Just the motor. That brief mechanical whir it makes when the sensors detect something and the system does a safety check. I sat up in bed. Listened. Nothing. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the garage camera. We'd installed a basic security system when we moved in. Nothing fancy, just cameras in the garage, front door, and backyard. The garage feed showed my car, my workbench, boxes we hadn't unpacked yet. Everything normal. The sensor light was solid green. I went back to sleep. It happened again Tuesday night. Same pattern. I turned off my bedroom light, settled in, and 15 minutes later, whir, the motor sound. This time I walked out to the garage in my boxers and checked. Nothing. No animals. No bugs on the sensors. I even waved my hand in front of them to make sure they were working. The red light blinked on command, and the motor responded. Everything functioned perfectly. Wednesday night, I decided to test something. I turned off my bedroom light like usual, but I stayed awake. Sat up in bed with my phone, watching the garage camera feed in real time. 11:47 p.m. Nothing. 12:05 a.m. Nothing. I was about to give up when I noticed something in the bottom right corner of the frame. My car, a gray Accord, sat in its usual spot, but there was a shadow underneath it. Not strange by itself. The overhead light created shadows, except this shadow moved. Just slightly. A subtle shift, like someone adjusting their weight. My stomach dropped. I kept watching. The shadow stayed still for another minute. Then the garage motor whirred, same sound I'd been hearing, and the shadow shifted again. Darker, more defined. Someone was under my car. I didn't call the police right away. I know that sounds stupid, but I kept thinking I was seeing things. Shadows playing tricks. I watched that feed for 20 more minutes. The shadow didn't move again, but I couldn't unsee it. At 12:40 a.m., I finally dialed 911. 2 officers showed up within 15 minutes. I met them outside, explained the situation. They swept the garage, checked under the car with flashlights, looked in the rafters. Nothing. "You mentioned you've been hearing this for a few nights?" the older officer asked. His nameplate said Morrison. "Yeah, always after I turn my bedroom light off." Morrison glanced at his partner. "Can we review your security footage?" We went inside. I pulled up the last week of garage camera recordings on my laptop. We started with tonight, then worked backward. Tuesday night, same thing. A shadow under the car, visible only if you really looked. Monday night, same shadow. Then Morrison paused the feed. "Go back," he said. Sunday night. I scrubbed backward to Sunday, right after Emily left. We watched the timestamp count up. 11:32 p.m. My bedroom light was still visible, reflecting into the hallway through the frame. 11:46 p.m., the light went dark. At 11:58 p.m., the shadow under my car moved. But this time, Morrison caught something I'd missed. He zoomed in on the frame, enhanced it. The shadow wasn't just shifting. It was crawling, out from under the car, slowly, deliberately, across the garage floor, toward the interior door, the one that led into my house. My throat closed up. "That door was locked," I whispered. "I always lock it." Morrison didn't answer. He kept scrolling through the footage. 12 minutes later, the shadow crawled back, slid under the car again. "It's checking if you're asleep," the younger officer said quietly. Morrison stood up. "Mr. Chun, I need you to pack a bag. You're not staying here tonight. We're calling for backup. We'll search every inch of this house. Your crawl space, your attic, everywhere." They found the sleeping bag first, tucked behind the hot water heater in the garage. Still warm. Then they found the photos. Dozens of them. Printed pictures of me and Emily. Some were from our social media, wedding photos, vacation shots. But others were taken through our windows. Me cooking breakfast. Emily reading on the couch. Me asleep in bed. All dated and labeled in handwriting I didn't recognize. Morrison's radio crackled. The voice on the other end was tense. "We've got something in the crawl space." Morrison looked at me. His expression had changed. Not just concerned anymore. He looked afraid. "Mr. Chun," he said slowly, "when did you say your wife is coming back?" "Friday. She lands at 6. He pulled out his phone. Started dialing. "What airline?" Morrison's question hung in the air like smoke. "Alaska Airlines," I said. "Flight 447. "Why?" He stepped into the hallway, phone pressed to his ear. I could hear him speaking in low tones, but couldn't make out the words. The younger officer, his nameplate read Hendricks, stayed with me, one hand resting near his belt. "Sir, I need you to try calling your wife," Hendricks said. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. I hit Emily's contact. It rang once, twice, straight to voicemail. "She's probably asleep," I said. It's almost 2 in the morning there. Try again. I did. Same result. Morrison came back, his face pale. We found a laptop in the crawl space. It's open. There's a document on the screen. What kind of document? He didn't answer, just gestured for me to follow him. We walked through my kitchen, where I'd made coffee that morning, and Morrison led me to the crawlspace access panel in the hallway. It was open. Another officer was down there with a flashlight. Don't touch anything, Morrison said. Just look. I crouched down. The laptop sat on a folded blanket, its screen glowing in the darkness. It was a timeline. March 3rd, E leaves for conference. March 3rd, 11:46 p.m., bedroom light off. Jay asleep by 12:10. March 4th, 11:52 p.m., bedroom light off. Jay asleep by 12:15. March 5th, 11:41 p.m., bedroom light off. Jay asleep by 12:05. March 6th tonight. E returns March 7th, 6 p.m. Final window. My vision blurred. Jay, that was me. Jason. There's more, Morrison said quietly. Keep reading. I forced myself to focus on the screen. Below the timeline was a paragraph. Jay doesn't lock the interior garage door properly. The latch doesn't catch if you close it gently. Check this on night 1. Access is easy. Bedroom is 47 steps from the garage. He's a heavy sleeper. Takes approximately 4 minutes after light off before deep sleep. E's flight lands at 6 p.m. She'll take rideshare. Checked her usual app. ETA to house, 7:15 p.m. Jay will be in shower at 6:45, routine consistent. This is the window. I stumbled backward. Morrison caught my arm. We need to get you out of this house, he said. Now. Who is this? My voice cracked. Who the fuck is this? We're working on it. The laptop might give us prints, and Morrison, the officer in the crawlspace, interrupted. You need to see this. Morrison climbed down. I heard their muffled conversation, then silence. When Morrison emerged, he looked sick. There's a duffel bag down there. Rope, duct tape, plastic sheeting. He paused. And a receipt from Home Depot. Dated yesterday. The receipt. My brain snagged on that detail. What name is on it? It was a cash purchase. No name. But Morrison pulled out his radio. Dispatch, I need you to pull security footage from the Home Depot on Riverside Drive. Transaction timestamp yesterday, March 5th, between 1400 and 1600 hours. Priority 1. Everything moved fast after that. More officers arrived. They photographed everything, bagged evidence, swept the entire property. I sat in the back of Morrison's patrol car, watching strangers process my life as a crime scene. My phone buzzed. Emily. I nearly dropped it answering. Emily? Jason? What's wrong? You called twice. I was in the shower. Where are you? Are you okay? I'm good. I'm at the hotel. What's going on? You sound terrified. I told her everything, the sensor, the shadow, the crawl space. She went silent for so long I thought the call dropped. Emily? I'm here. Her voice was strange. Jason, I need to tell you something. My chest tightened. What? The conference ended yesterday. I was supposed to fly back tonight, but I extended my trip. I've been meaning to tell you, but I didn't know how. Extended it? Why? Because I needed time to think. About us. About everything. She paused. I'm seeing someone else, Jason. I have been for 3 months. I'm sorry. I was going to tell you when I got back, but... Wait, stop. My thoughts were racing too fast. You were supposed to come back Friday. Tomorrow. That's what you told me. No. I told you Sunday. I texted you my new flight details on Monday. I pulled the phone away from my ear, scrolled through our messages. She was right. There it was. Monday morning. Change of plans, flying back Sunday instead. Alaska 892, lands at 6 p.m. I'd never opened the text. The document in the crawl space flashed through my mind. E returns March 7th, 6 p.m. March 7th was Sunday, not Friday. I'd told Morrison Friday. Jason, are you still there? Morrison was walking toward the patrol car, holding his radio. His expression had changed again. Not afraid anymore. Resigned. He opened the door. Mr. Chin, we got the Home Depot footage. And? The person who bought those supplies, they paid cash. Wore a baseball cap, kept their head down. But we got a partial on their face when they turned at the register. He showed me his phone. The security image was grainy but clear enough. It was Emily, my wife, the woman I'd been married to for 4 years. I looked at Morrison, at the phone still pressed to my ear, at the house where someone had been living in my crawl space, documenting my routine, planning something for tomorrow night. Jason, Emily's voice came through the speaker. Are you okay? Say something. Morrison leaned in close, his voice barely a whisper. Mr. Chin, is your wife left-handed or right-handed? Right-handed. Why? He pointed to the laptop photo on his phone, the timeline document. The handwriting in those photos we found, all the labels. They're written by someone left-handed. The slant gives it away. My mouth went dry. Morrison continued. And the sleeping bag in your garage? It had a hospital badge clipped to it. Swedish Medical Center. Seattle. He paused. That's where your wife said she was, right? I nodded. We called the conference. Emily Chin checked in Sunday. Attended every session. She's been exactly where she said she was. Then who? Jason. Emily's voice was urgent now. What's happening? You're scaring me. Morrison took my phone. Mrs. Chun, this is Officer Morrison with Maple Ridge PD. I need to ask you something important. Do you know anyone who might have access to your house? Anyone from before you moved in? What? No. Why would? She stopped. Wait. There was someone. The previous owner's daughter. She stopped by last month when Jason was at work. Said she'd left something in the crawl space when they moved out. A box of her mother's things. I let her go down and get it. Do you remember her name? I think it was Sarah something. Sarah Hendricks, maybe? She was really sweet. Pretty girl. She even helped me unpack some boxes after. Morrison and I locked eyes. Hendricks, the young officer who'd been standing guard with me. The one who told me to call Emily. The one who'd been in my house for the last hour. Morrison spun around, hand moving to his weapon. Officer Hendricks was gone. And so was my laptop, the one with all my passwords saved. In less than a minute, Morrison's radio exploded with static. All units, we have a situation. Suspect fled on foot, heading north on Maple. The voice was cut off by another transmission. We've got her. Corner of Maple and 5th. She's not resisting. Morrison grabbed my arm. Stay in the car. Don't move. I watched through the windshield as 2 patrol cars pulled up at the end of my street. Officers emerged with someone in handcuffs. It wasn't Officer Hendricks. It was a woman in civilian clothes. Dark hair. Maybe 30. She wasn't fighting or screaming. She just stood there, staring at my house with this blank expression. Morrison walked back 10 minutes later. He looked exhausted. Her name is Sarah Hendricks. She's not a cop. She stole her brother's uniform from his apartment. He's Officer Hendricks. Real officer. He's on administrative leave pending investigation for not securing his gear. Why? My voice barely worked. Why would she do this? Morrison sat down heavily in the driver's seat. She grew up in your house. Her mother died there 2 years ago. Carbon monoxide leak. Sarah found her. He paused. She's been in and out of psychiatric facilities since. Apparently, she became obsessed with the idea that her mother was still in the house. That whoever lived there was keeping her trapped. That's insane. Yeah, Morrison rubbed his face. According to her statement, she wasn't planning to hurt you. She was planning to. I don't know how to say this. Free her mother when you were asleep. She thought if she could get into the house at the right time, perform some kind of ritual. He shook his head. She's not well, Mr. Chin. I looked at my house. All the lights were on now. Crime scene tape across the garage. Evidence markers on my lawn. What about Emily? I asked. Morrison handed me back my phone. That's between you two. But she's safe. That's what matters. I called her back. She answered immediately. Jason? I'm okay. You're okay. It's over. What happened? Morrison wouldn't tell me anything. I opened my mouth to explain. To tell her about Sarah Hendricks. About the crawl space and the timeline, and how close it had come to being so much worse. Instead, I said, I think we need to talk. When you get home. About everything. She was quiet for a moment. Yeah, we do. Sunday, right? You land at 6. Yeah. I'll pick you up. Okay. We sat in silence on the line. Not the comfortable silence we used to share. Something heavier. "Jason," she said finally. "Yeah. I'm glad you're safe." "Yeah, me too." I hung up. Morrison drove me to a hotel. Said I couldn't go back in the house until the investigation was complete. Probably a few days. He gave me his card, told me to call if I needed anything. I sat on the hotel bed at 4 in the morning, still shaking. Kept thinking about that red sensor light. How many nights I'd ignored it. How close I'd come to never knowing. The thing is, I still don't know what would have happened if I hadn't checked the security footage that night. If I just kept ignoring the signs. Sarah Hendricks was charged with stalking, breaking and entering, and unlawful impersonation of a peace officer. She's in a psychiatric facility now awaiting trial. Her lawyer is arguing diminished capacity. Emily and I had that talk when she got back. We're seeing a marriage counselor. I don't know if we'll make it. Some things, once broken, don't fit back together the same way. I sold the house 3 months later. Took a loss on it, didn't care. The new owners seem happy. They have 2 kids. A dog. I saw their Facebook post about the amazing garage space. I haven't told them about the crawl space. Some nights, I still wake up thinking about that red sensor light, blinking in the darkness, warning me that something was there. Something I couldn't see, but could have been seen if I'd just paid attention. I check my locks now. Every night. Multiple times. And I never, ever, ignore the blinking lights. The knocking started at 11:43 p.m. I know because I just paused my laptop to check the time, debating whether to finish the report or leave it for morning. 3 sharp raps. Then a voice. "Please, please, someone help me." It was a woman. She sounded breathless. I got up from the couch, moved toward the door but didn't open it. My porch light was motion activated. It should have turned on. It hadn't. "He's coming back," she said. "Please, I just need to call the police. Please open the door." Her voice cracked on that last word. Real fear. The kind you can't fake. My hand touched the deadbolt. "I'm so scared. Please, I just need help." Something in my brain snagged. The phrasing. I stood there, fingers on the lock, listening. Silence for maybe 10 seconds. Then, "Please, please, someone help me." Exact same inflection. Same breathless quality. "He's coming back. Please, I just need to call the police. Please open the door." Word for word. Syllable for syllable. Even the crack in her voice happened at the exact same moment. I stepped back from the door. "I'm so scared. Please, I just need help." My phone was on the coffee table. I grabbed it, dialed 911, kept my voice low. The knocking started again while I talked to the dispatcher. Same rhythm. Same desperate voice, cycling through those same 4 sentences like a skipping record. The 911 operator said units were 6 minutes out. The voice stopped at minute 4. No footsteps. No sounds of running. Just silence. When the police arrived, they found nothing. No woman. No signs of struggle. But Officer Lincoln crouched near my welcome mat, shining his flashlight at an angle. "You see this? Muddy footprints. Small, maybe size 7. Leading up my porch steps to my door, but none leading away." "She came up," I said, "but didn't leave?" Lincoln stood, swept his light across my small front yard. "Or she was carried. They took photos, filed a report, told me to call if anything else happened." I didn't sleep much after that. Kept replaying those phrases, that identical repetition. 3 days later, I found it. Not on my doorbell camera. I'd checked that obsessively. The footage from that night showed nothing. Just an empty porch and audio of knocking with no visible source. No, this was physical. A letter. White envelope. Taped directly to my door where I couldn't miss it. I pulled it down, opened it standing right there on the porch. 1 sentence. Handwritten in careful block letters. "You did the right thing. She wasn't alone." My hands started shaking. I looked up at the street. Empty. Midday sun. Normal. I turned the envelope over. Nothing. Then I noticed something I'd missed. The tape. It was on the inside of my screen door. Not the outside. Someone had opened my screen door to tape this here. Sometime between last night, when I'd checked the mail and this morning, which meant they had been standing between my screen door and my main door, in that 2-foot space where I'd stood 3 nights ago, deciding whether to turn the lock. I pulled out my phone to call the police again. It buzzed before I could dial. A text from an unknown number. Check your doorbell footage. Last night, 2:57 a.m. I opened the app with trembling fingers, scrolled to the timestamp. The footage showed my porch. Empty. Then something moved at the very edge of the frame. A hand, reaching up slowly from below the camera's view, pressing something against my door. The envelope. But the hand, it was too pale, wrong color, and the fingers bent backward at the joints, like they'd been broken and healed incorrectly. The hand retreated. For just a second, before it disappeared, I saw what was attached to it. I watched the footage 5 more times before calling Detective Scott, the officer who'd taken my original statement. He arrived within the hour, alone this time. Watched the clip on my phone without saying a word. "Send that to me," he finally said. And the text message. "What is this? What's happening?" Scott handed my phone back. "Can we talk inside?" We sat at my kitchen table. He pulled out a small notebook, flipped through pages that looked well-worn. 3 months ago, we had a missing persons case. Sarah Kim, 24, disappeared walking home from her shift at Memorial Hospital. He paused. Her roommate reported hearing her voice outside their apartment that same night, begging to be let in. The roommate opened the door? No. She looked through the peephole first. Saw Sarah standing there, but something felt off about the way she stood. Too rigid. So she called out and asked Sarah a question only she would know. "What happened?" Sarah answered, word perfect. Then asked to be let in again. Exact same phrasing as before. The roommate called 911 instead. My mouth went dry. Did they find her? Scott closed the notebook. 2 days later, in a drainage culvert 8 miles away. She'd been dead approximately 3 weeks. But the roommate heard her 3 months ago. She heard something. Scott looked at me directly. We pulled security footage from the apartment building. There was someone at that door. Looked like Sarah from behind. Same height, same hair, same jacket she'd been wearing when she disappeared. But it wasn't her. The footage never showed a face. Just a figure standing there knocking. When units arrived, they found muddy footprints, leading to the door but not away. The kitchen felt smaller suddenly. There have been 4 other incidents, Scott continued. Same pattern. Voice calling for help. Muddy prints. Always at night. Always someone who hesitates to open the door. The people who didn't hesitate? He didn't answer immediately. We don't know. They don't report it. Or they can't. I thought about that hand on the footage. What do you think it is? Honestly, I don't know. But I think you got lucky. He stood. I'm putting a patrol on your street for the next week. In the meantime, I need you to do something for me. If you hear that voice again, or any voice asking to be let in, he met my eyes. Don't engage. Don't answer. Don't acknowledge it at all. After Scott left, I tried to work. Tried to focus on anything normal. But I kept returning to my doorbell app, scrolling through the footage, pausing on that pale hand. Around 8 p.m., my phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. She wants to thank you. Then another. She's been asking about you. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Every instinct screamed not to respond. I typed anyway. Who is this? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Someone who didn't hesitate. I locked my phone, set it face down on the counter. That's when I heard it. From my basement. Knocking. 3 sharp raps against the door at the bottom of my basement stairs. The door that led to the crawlspace beneath my porch. Then her voice. The same voice from 3 nights ago. Please. Please, someone help me. But this time it was coming from inside my house. I grabbed my keys, moved toward the front door. My phone buzzed continuously, text after text. I didn't open it. I yanked open the front door. Detective Scott was standing on my porch, hand raised to knock. I forgot to. He saw my face. What's wrong? Basement. The voice. It's in my basement. He drew his weapon, moved past me. Stay behind me. We approached the basement door together. Silence now. Complete silence. Scott descended the stairs slowly, flashlight mounted on his gun. I followed, every muscle tensed. The crawlspace door was open. It's never open. I kept it padlocked specifically because the crawl space gave me nightmares, tight, dark, full of spiders. Scott shined his light inside. It was empty, just dirt and old pipes and shadows. But on the ground, directly in front of the opening, was something that shouldn't be there. A phone. Old model, cracked screen, covered in dried mud. Scott picked it up with a gloved hand, pressed the power button. It lit up. The screen showed a voice recording app. One file labeled help.mp3, recorded 3 weeks ago. He looked at me and pressed play. Please, someone help me. That voice. The same voice. He's coming back. Please, I just need to call the police. Please open the door. Background noise now. Fabric rustling. Breathing. Then a man's voice quiet. Again. Say it again. Then. I'm so scared. Please, I just need help. Perfect. One more time. The recording ended. Scott was already on his radio, calling for backup, for a forensics team. But I couldn't stop staring at that crawlspace entrance. At the disturbed dirt just inside, like something had been dragged through recently. My phone buzzed one final time. Thank you for listening. She's resting now. But don't worry, there are others who need help. You'll hear them soon. Scott sealed off my basement. They searched the crawlspace with ground-penetrating radar. Found disturbed earth, but nothing buried. The phone's owner was Sarah Kim. I stayed at a hotel for 2 weeks while they investigated. They never found who sent those texts, never identified the hand in the footage. The case went cold after 6 weeks. I sold my house, moved to a secured apartment complex downtown. High-rise, concrete with no crawl spaces. Scott calls sometimes to check in. Says they're still working it, still following leads. But I know what he's not saying. Whoever it was, they're still out there. Still selecting houses and still playing recordings of voices that once belonged to real people calling for real help. I think about that letter sometimes. You did the right thing. Maybe I did. Maybe hesitating saved my life. Or maybe the right thing was exactly what they wanted, to create another person looking over their shoulder, jumping at sounds, afraid to trust their own instincts. Because that's the thing about fear. It doesn't need to kill you to destroy you. It just needs to move in. And sadly, I let it. My mom called to check on me while she was away for the weekend. I remember pacing around the kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, half listening to her ask if I'd eaten dinner. Then, in the middle of her sentence, I heard her voice again, calling my name from the kitchen doorway. The same tone, same softness. But I was already in the kitchen. I froze with the phone still to my ear, staring at the empty space beside the fridge. My mom kept talking normally, her voice coming through the phone, steady, unaware, while the other version of her voice drifted from a few feet away, low and drawn out. For a few seconds, I couldn't tell which one was real. The sound from the phone faded behind the one inside the house. It called my name again, slower this time, like it was waiting for me to answer. The air felt thick and heavy, the kind that clings to your throat. I stepped backward toward the hallway, trying not to make a sound. The phone was still pressed to my ear. My mom was asking if I'd check the locks before bed. I whispered that someone was in the house. She thought I was joking until she heard it too, faintly through my phone's mic. That same calm voice calling my name. She told me to go to the bathroom and lock the door. I moved fast, closing myself inside, the phone trembling in my hand. She stayed on the line the whole time, whispering to keep quiet. Minutes dragged. Then came the sound of footsteps, slow, careful, moving past the bathroom. They paused. The door handle turned once. Then silence. My mom said she was calling the police. I didn't move, not even to breathe. When they arrived, I heard the front door crash open. Shouts. Running. An officer called out that the place was clear. But when they checked the kitchen window, it was open, curtain swaying like someone had slipped out moments before. They didn't find anyone. Not a trace. No footprints, no sign of forced entry. Just a chair slightly pulled out from the kitchen table, facing the hallway where I'd been standing. After that night, my mom came home the next morning with the police report in her hand and worry all over her face. She believed me, which somehow made it worse. She called the landlord more than 4 times, but he didn't answer, not even once. Within a week, she decided we'd leave the house for good. When we were packing to leave that house, a neighbor stopped me. She said she used to know the woman who lived there before us, an older lady who lost her son years ago. She said the woman would call for him every night before she passed away. And when she asked where my room was, I pointed upstairs. Her face went pale. That was his room, she said. She always said he'd come back home someday. We packed fast. Even as we loaded boxes into the car, the place felt like it was watching us go. I didn't sleep until we settled into a small apartment across town. For a while, things were normal again. Then one night, around midnight, my phone lit up on the nightstand. "Mom, incoming call." I answered, half asleep. Nothing. Just soft static and a slow, steady breathing. "Mom," I whispered. Then the call ended. The next morning, she swore she hadn't called. She showed me her phone to prove it. No outgoing call, no record of it at all. It happened again 2 nights later, same time, same silence. I tried recording the next one, and when I played it back, I heard it under the static, a whisper. My name. I told myself it was interference, or maybe a prank, until the call came through the house phone, the one in the kitchen we barely used. That night, the voice didn't come through the line. It came from the hallway. It sounded just like my mom, gentle and patient, calling for me the same way she used to when dinner was ready. I didn't move. I just listened. The voice came again, closer this time, almost inside the room. The next morning, I told my mom everything. She stared at me for a long time, then said quietly, "That woman, the one who lived there before us. She lost her son in that house, didn't she?" I nodded. She looked toward my bedroom door and whispered, "Maybe she didn't realize we left." I tried to laugh, but I was so scared. That night, we slept at a relative's house. None of us said much. I think we both wanted to believe the old woman had just gone back to her life somewhere else, that the whole thing was some weird misunderstanding. A week later, my mom went back to collect the last few things from the cabin. She asked me to come, but I refused. When she came back, she looked shaken. She said the door was already open, like someone had been inside. The place was cold and quiet, but in the back room, the one that used to be the old woman's, she found something that made her drop everything and run. On the wall, above the spot where the woman's bed had been, there were fresh carvings. My mom said they looked like tally marks. 6 of them scratched deep into the wood. The landlord's number still doesn't work. And last week, we got a letter with no return address. It was just a single page, folded twice. All it said was, "You forgot one more night." The knock came at my back door around 2 in the afternoon. About 5 to 6 solid raps. Not casual, but expected. I figured it was the meter reader, probably already exhausted and a little impatient. They usually come through the alley, check the box on the back of the house. I opened the door without checking the peephole. 2 men, both huge, 6'3", 6'4" maybe, built like they spent serious time in the gym. Before I could say anything, they shoved past me into the kitchen. One of them grabbed my shoulder, spun me around, slammed me against the wall. The impact knocked the breath out of me. The other one locked the back door behind them. They walked me to the living room, not rough but firm. The kind of grip that tells you not to fight it. Pushed me down onto the couch. The taller one stood over me. Leather vest. Patches I recognized from seeing them on motorcycles around town. Hell's Angels. "Your boyfriend's got a problem," he said. "He's selling on our territory. Cutting into our business. We're here to send a message." He kept calling me Jessica. That's my next-door neighbor's name. I tried to tell him, "I'm not Jessica. You have the wrong house." He didn't listen. Just kept talking, telling me how much money my boyfriend owed them. How they'd been watching the house for weeks. The shorter one disappeared upstairs. I could hear him opening doors, going through rooms. I live in a 4-level split. My neighbor's place is a single floor with a basement. Completely different layout. The guy standing over me started getting agitated, asking where we kept the product, where the money was. I kept saying the same thing. "I'm not Jessica. This isn't her house." He grabbed my purse off the coffee table, dumped it out, found my wallet, looked at my driver's license. His expression changed. The other guy came back downstairs, said he couldn't find anything. No stash, no cash, nothing where they were told it would be. They looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. The tall one crouched down to my level, changed his tone completely. "Listen," he said, "we're not here about drugs. We're here because your neighbor's boyfriend raped our cousin. We're just trying to find him." I knew that was garbage. You don't break into someone's house over a rape accusation. You call the cops. You handle it legally. But I didn't argue, just nodded, told them whatever they wanted to hear. They took the cash from my wallet. $63, all I had. Then they left through the back door. Didn't run. Just walked out like nothing happened. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes, shaking, trying to process what just happened. I had to quickly pull myself together and lock every door in the house. Front, back, side. Even locked the windows. Called my boyfriend. Told him to come home. Told him what happened. He got there in 15 minutes. We went to the hardware store that same day. Bought locks for the screen doors. Heavy-duty ones. He left after staying with me for a while because he was on duty that night at the hospital pharmacy, so he couldn't stay till the next day. But here's what I kept thinking about. They said they'd been watching the house for weeks. They knew someone lived here. Knew the layout was different from next door. And they still chose my door. Still pushed their way in. Like maybe they weren't making a mistake at all. Maybe they wanted to see how I'd react. See if I'd call the cops. See if I was someone who'd keep quiet. 2 weeks later, I was getting my mail. Saw my neighbor outside. Jessica. I almost told her what happened. Almost warned her. But something stopped me. Just for a second, she looked at me like she already knew. Like maybe she was the one that sent them to the wrong house on purpose. To see what I'd do. That night, I checked the locks 4 times before bed. And when I finally tried to sleep, I kept thinking about what the taller one said before they left. He'd leaned close. Whispered something I almost didn't catch. "Smart girl. Keep it that way." Like this was a test. And I'd passed. But passed into what? I avoided Jessica for the next 2 weeks. Took different routes to my car. Checked the mail at odd hours. But she caught me eventually. I was taking out the trash one evening when she appeared at the fence between our yards. She greeted and asked if we could talk. I didn't want to, but I also didn't want to make things worse by refusing. She told me she'd heard what happened. Said her boyfriend's ex had sent those guys. Some kind of revenge thing because he'd broken up with her. The whole story sounded rehearsed. I just nodded. Said I was sorry she was dealing with that. She looked at me for a long moment. "You didn't call the cops?" I told her I didn't see the point. They didn't really hurt me. Just scared me. She smiled. Small. Almost relieved. "That's good," she said. "Smart." Then she went back inside. 3 weeks later, a for sale sign went up in her yard. She moved out within a month. Didn't say goodbye. The new neighbors are a retired couple. Quiet. Normal. But I still have those locks on my screen doors. And occasionally, my mind flashes to what Jessica said. Smart. Like keeping quiet was the right move. Like talking would have caused problems I couldn't imagine. I'll never know if they really made a mistake that day, or if breaking into my house was the whole point. A warning delivered to the wrong address, or maybe exactly the right one. Either way, I learned something. Sometimes the scariest part isn't what happens to you. It's realizing you were never supposed to be safe to begin with. That your home, your locks, your closed doors, they're all just suggestions. And some people know exactly how to walk right through them. I moved 6 months later. My boyfriend, now fiancé, had an amazing job offer and things were already serious between us. We moved to Riverside. New city, new neighborhood. Better locks. But I never opened the back door without checking first. And I never will, again. I was home alone one night back in 2019. My parents were out on their romantic weekend getaway, although this time, it was Friday morning to Saturday night. They've always done it for as long as I can remember. It was like a ritual at this point, but it was always a fun time for me as I got to be in a house full of food and could do whatever I wanted at any time with anybody. Well, my friends, actually. Anyways, I had just returned from my midday run on Saturday, and being a hot July day, I had worked up quite a sweat on my run, so I had decided to take a cold shower and clean up a bit. My house doesn't have air conditioning and was quite stuffed up, so I opened a few windows to circulate the airflow within the house. I can remember opening a window in the kitchen, 2 windows across from each other in the living room, and 1 window in the basement. I knew I was going to be spending my night down there watching movies, since it was much cooler. I had my shower, got dressed, took a quick bowl of Raisin Bran while scrolling IG, and went downstairs later to make myself some dinner. I took my dinner down to the basement and flicked on Netflix to start my binge-filled night of new shows, especially Stranger Things Season 3. I had been waiting for forever. I don't recall falling asleep, but I must have passed out not long after eating my food and lying down because I was quite exhausted after my run. When I woke up, it was dark outside. The only light being cast into the basement was from the dimly lit TV screen. It was now freezing in the basement. I could feel a cold breeze circulating the room from having the window open for too long. I got up and walked over to the light switch that was located at the bottom of the stairs. I closed the window, then went back to turn off the TV, grab my dishes, and head upstairs. When I got upstairs, all the lights were still off, indicating that my parents were still not home from their mini vacation. I cleaned the dishes, put them in the dishwasher, and closed the window above the sink. Just before I went up to my room for the night, I remembered that the windows in the living room were still open. I walked over to close the one window by the TV, then over to the next, which was located by the front porch. I noticed that my mom's vase with fake flowers was knocked off the table in front of the window, and the flowers were sprawled out across the floor. I didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe there was a strong breeze and the curtains had tipped it over. I closed the window and started picking up the flowers. As I was cleaning, I heard a faint squeaky sound. What I could only imagine was a door handle being twisted. I listened as hard as possible. Following the squeak of the handle was a creak in the hallway floor upstairs. A pain shot from my stomach to my chest, and I froze. After what seemed like an eternity of being bent over with my one hand holding the vase and the other clutching the flowers, I slowly stood up. I looked out the front window to check the driveway for my parents' car, hoping it was just one of them upstairs. The driveway was empty. My heart sank. I quickly but quietly put the vase and flowers down on the table and silently began walking over to the bottom of the stairs to look up. As I got closer to the stairs, I heard 2 more creaks on the floor which caused me to stop dead in my tracks. I waited, listening. Nothing. I was only a few steps from the stairs and put one hand on the railing. I peeked around the corner and only saw darkness. I didn't know what to do. Should I flick on the lights and let the potential intruder in my house know that I'm coming upstairs? Do I leave and go to a friend's house? Do I call my parents? Do I grow a pair and just go upstairs? I decided to turn my phone on silent and go to the kitchen to text my dad, making sure I was close to the back door for an easy getaway. He told me, "It's an old house, it's just settling after a really hot day." I told him about the sound of the door handle twisting. He just assumed there was an open window upstairs and the wind was knocking a door against the frame. Was that it? Could it just be a window that was left open? I felt a huge chunk of my anxiety start to fade after talking with my dad, so I just decided to grab a glass of water and head on up to bed. I flicked on the lights for the stairs and started making my way up, but slowly, still a tiny knot in my stomach from before. I got to the top of the stairs and noticed that all of the doors were wide open, except for mine. My parents' room and spare bedroom were on the left, and the den and my room were on the right, with the bathroom at the end of the hallway. Though as my dad had predicted, my door was just cracked just enough that a breeze could be making it hit the frame. Being as hot as it was that day, it wasn't unusual for my mom to open all the doors and windows upstairs. I exhaled a sigh of relief, now fully confident that my dad was right. I turned on the lights to my room, did a quick look around, and walked over to my nightstand to put my water beside my laptop, then went off to the bathroom to get ready for bed. As I lay in bed trying to get sleepy, I was watching my favorite reruns of Seinfeld on my laptop. Then out of nowhere, I heard a sound of something slowly scraping my closet door. I quickly flicked on the light beside my bed. My closet door was cracked open ever so slightly. Questions started racing through my head. Was it open the whole time? Or was it closed when I came in? I was positive that it was closed when I came in. Before I even had time to rationalize my thoughts, I heard the most disturbing, creepy, quiet, sinister laugh I've ever heard in my life. No horror movie could ever replicate the sound I just heard. As soon as I slid my laptop off my legs, the closet door burst open, and someone was standing in the closet. My clothes were partially covering their body and face. I looked closer, and there was the most pale, sickly, dirtiest woman I had ever seen. For the split second that I had seen her in horror, the image was burned into my brain forever. She had no shoes on her disgusting, dirt-stained feet. Her skin was sickeningly white with cuts and dried blood from her face, down her arms, all the way to her legs. She was wearing what I assume used to be a white nightgown, which was now a discolored mess of dirt, blood, and who knows what else. Her gray, sunken-in face closely resembled a decaying skeleton and was mostly covered by my clothes. She asked in a quiet, grumbling, raspy voice, "Have you seen my baby?" That was enough for me to grab my phone and run. As soon as I was halfway out my bedroom door, I heard her shriek, "Give me back my baby," with clothes hangers thrashing around behind me. I ran as fast as I could to the upstairs bathroom and locked the door. It was only a second later that I heard a huge crash against the door, along with the woman screaming in a devilish tone, demanding I return her baby to her. I called 911, and the operator assured me the police would be there as fast as they could. I jammed my feet against the door and held my back against the sink, trying my hardest to make sure the door stayed closed. The woman would not let up though. Her shrieks turned into low, demon-like grunts, and her banging on the door turned into heavy bodily blows. With what seemed like an eternity, I heard the most heavenly sound. I heard the police call out that they were entering the residence. I yelled at the top of my lungs that I was upstairs. All I could hear next was a mixed commotion of the officers yelling and the woman growling. The officers ended up pepper spraying the woman, and it took a number of them to be able to force her to the ground. She was yelling in a possessed-like state the entire time. I did not come out of the bathroom until the cops assured me she was out of the house. The cops told me she was likely on drugs or an escaped mental patient from the next county over. I tried telling them that she sounded like she was possessed or something, but they chalked it up to the woman just needing her medication. My parents arrived home shortly after I gave my statements to the police. We moved out of that house a month later. That was one night I was home alone that sadly I will never forget. I was 19 when I learned that privacy is just an illusion we sell ourselves. My parents left Friday morning for my aunt's wedding in Vermont. 3-day weekend. The house was mine. I remember feeling so adult about it, like I'd finally earned their trust. Saturday afternoon, I'm scrolling through my phone on the couch when something catches my eye. A yellow post-it note, stuck to the outside of our living room window. I walked to it slowly, read it through the glass. "You look better with the curtains open." My stomach dropped, but then I laughed. Had to be Jake from next door. He was always pulling stupid pranks. I peeled the note off, crumpled it, tossed it toward the kitchen trash, missed. I called my boyfriend, Marcus. "Someone's messing with me." "What do you mean?" "Creepy note on my window." "Probably Jake being Jake." "Want me to come over?" "I mean, yeah, if you want." He showed up 20 minutes later with pizza, and that concerned look he gets. I showed him the note, now smoothed out on the counter. He read it twice. "This doesn't seem like a prank, Lena." "It's fine. Seriously." But Marcus wasn't listening. He was already outside, circling the house with his phone flashlight, even though it was still light out. When he came back in, his face had changed. "There are marks on your windowsill. Like grooves. In the paint." I followed him outside. He was right. 2 parallel indentations in the white paint. Exactly where someone's elbows would rest if they'd been leaning there for a long time. My mouth went dry. "Maybe it's old," I said. "The paint's fresh. Your dad just repainted last month, remember?" I did remember. He'd complained about it for 2 weekends straight. We went back inside. Marcus was pacing now, running his hand through his hair. We should call someone. And say what? Someone leaned on our window. He picked up the note again, studying it. The handwriting's neat. Like really deliberate. That's when I remembered. The Amazon delivery from Thursday. I had signed for a package, my mom's birthday present. The delivery guy had me sign on his phone, but then handed me a paper receipt too. Said the system was glitchy. I'd thrown it in the recycling bin under the sink. My hands were shaking when I pulled out the bin. Dug through coffee grounds and banana peels until I found it. Smoothed it out next to the post-it note. The handwriting was identical. Not similar. Identical. The same looping Y, the slanted T, and the O that never quite closed. He was in your house, Marcus whispered. He delivered a package. That's his job. No, Lena, he made you sign digitally. He didn't need to give you a paper receipt. He just wanted you to have something with his handwriting on it, so you'd know. The room tilted. I pulled up my Ring doorbell footage from Thursday. Found the delivery. Watched this ordinary-looking guy in a brown uniform hand me the package. Watched myself smile and say thank you. Watched him smile back. Watched him glance past me, into the house, for just a second too long. What was in the package? Marcus asked. Mom's birthday present. I put it in her closet upstairs. We took the stairs 2 at a time. My mother's closet door was open. I never left it open. The package sat on the shelf where I'd left it, still wrapped, but next to it was something new. A manila envelope, unsealed. Marcus reached for it, but I grabbed his wrist. Don't. We have to look. He pulled out a stack of photographs. They were all of me reading on the couch, me making breakfast, me getting out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, hair dripping. All taken through the living room window. All taken over the past month. The last photo was different. Taken last night. I was asleep on the couch, my face peaceful in the glow of the TV. Written across the bottom, in that same careful handwriting. Final delivery coming soon. Marcus dropped the photos like they'd burned him. We're calling the police. Right now. I nodded, but I couldn't move. Couldn't stop staring at that last picture. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m. I'd fallen asleep watching Netflix around midnight. He'd been inside my house while I slept. Marcus already had his phone out. Yeah, hi. We need someone to come. There's been a stalker. He has photos. He's been in the house. While he talked to the dispatcher, I forced myself to look through the rest of the envelope. There were 17 photos total. The earliest was dated 4 weeks ago, 2 days after that delivery. In it, I'm visible through the window, completely unaware. But it was what I found beneath the photos that made my blood ice over. A work schedule. My work schedule from the cafe downtown, printed from our employee portal. How did he access that? My class schedule from school. A list of my parents' upcoming trips with dates and destinations. He'd been planning this, studying me like a project. They're sending someone, Marcus said, putting his phone down. 15 minutes. He knows when my parents leave. He knew they'd be gone this weekend. Marcus grabbed my shoulders. Listen to me. We're not staying here. We're going to wait outside in my car until the cops show up. What about the photos? The evidence? We leave it. They need to see everything exactly how we found it. We went downstairs. Marcus insisted on checking every room, every closet, before we left. The house felt different now. Contaminated. Every shadow seemed deliberate. At the front door, I stopped. What? Marcus asked. The note said, final delivery coming soon. What if he's still coming? What if he's watching right now, waiting for the police to leave? That's exactly why we're not staying. We stepped outside. The evening air felt wrong. Marcus's car was parked on the street, 30 feet away. We were halfway there when I heard a phone notification. My phone. I pulled it out. An email from an address I didn't recognize. There was no subject line. Marcus saw my face. Don't open it. But my thumb was already moving. The email contained a single line. You should have kept the curtains closed. Attached was a video file. Lena, don't. I pressed play. It was dashcam footage from a car parked across the street, pointed at my house. The timestamp read now. Real time. In the video, Marcus and I were visible on my front lawn, exactly where we were standing. The camera zoomed in slowly. Marcus grabbed the phone from my hand and hurled it into the grass. "Get in the car. Now." We ran. He fumbled with his keys, dropped them, and cursed. I kept looking at the parked cars lining the street, trying to figure out which one held the camera. Which one held him? The engine started. Marcus peeled away from the curb, just as police lights appeared at the end of the block. "Should we go back?" I asked. "I really don't know." He pulled over 2 streets away. We watched in his rearview mirror as 2 patrol cars turned onto my street. My phone was still on my lawn, still recording me, still sending him footage of whatever he wanted to see. "They'll find him," Marcus said, but his voice shook. "They'll check the footage, trace the email. He's been doing this for a month. You think he's stupid enough to use a traceable email?" We sat in silence. After 20 minutes, Marcus drove us back. The police were inside my house now, their flashlights sweeping through rooms. An officer came out to meet us, took our statements, examined the photos, the schedule, the note, called for a detective. Everything became procedural, official. They found my phone in the grass. Wouldn't let me touch it as it was evidence now. They dusted for prints, found dozens on the windowsill, but the detective said most were probably degraded from weather. They'd try anyway. The dashcam car was gone, if it had ever really been there. Around midnight, they finally let us back inside. Marcus stayed with me. The detective said they'd have a patrol car outside for the next 72 hours. Standard protocol. "What about after that?" I asked. He didn't have a good answer. My parents came home the next morning. I'd called them at 3 a.m., told them everything. My mother cried. My father installed new locks on every door, new cameras covering every angle of the house. The police never found him. The email was sent from an encrypted server. The photos had no metadata. No prints came back with matches. The delivery company had hired him through a contractor, paid cash, fake ID, disappeared after 1 week. That was 3 months ago. We moved 2 weeks after it happened. New house, new neighborhood, new schools for me. I see a therapist now. She says I'm making progress. But sometimes, when I'm alone in my new room, I think about that work schedule he had. The one from the cafe's employee portal. I never told the police this part. The portal requires 2-factor authentication. You can't access it remotely without someone's phone. He would have needed my phone to get that schedule. Which means at some point, maybe while I slept, maybe while I showered, maybe during one of those 17 photographed moments, he wasn't just watching through the window. He was inside, close enough to touch me, and I never knew. My front door weighs about 60 pounds. Solid oak. Previous owner installed it for security, but the frame settled wrong over the years, so it sticks. You have to really pull to get it open. Makes a specific scraping sound when it finally gives. I got home from work around 6 on a Tuesday. Grabbed the handle, pulled hard like always. The door swung open easily. Too easily. I stood there for a second, confused. Looked at the deadbolt. It had been turned. The bolt was extended, but it wasn't seated in the strike plate. Just hanging there in the air, like someone had turned the lock without actually closing the door first. I must have been distracted that morning. Running late. Probably yanked the door shut, but didn't check if it actually latched. Careless, but whatever. Nothing looked disturbed inside. I made dinner, watched TV, and went to bed around 11. The sound woke me at 1:04 a.m. A dull thud, muffled, coming from downstairs. I lay there, trying to place it. Then it came again. Thud. Wood on wood. Soft impact. My door. Someone was bumping my front door against the frame. Not knocking. Not trying to force it. Testing it. Seeing how much noise it made when it moved. I sat up, pulse hammering in my ears. Thud. Gentler this time. Like they were learning. Finding the quietest angle. I swung my legs out of bed, grabbed my phone. The sound stopped. Complete silence. I walked to my bedroom door, opened it slowly. The hallway was dark. Stairs leading down were darker. I called out. My voice came out rougher than I intended. Hello? Nothing. Is someone there? Still nothing. I stood at the top of the stairs, listening, waiting for another thud, another test, but the house stayed quiet. Then I heard it, from the back of the house, the kitchen, a soft metallic squeak, my screen door, the spring-loaded hinge that always whines when it closes. Someone had just gone out the back, which meant they'd been inside. The front door was a test, a distraction. While I was focused on that sound, listening to those careful thuds, someone else had already come in through the back. And they'd just left. I fumbled with my phone, turned on the flashlight, went downstairs. The front door was closed, deadbolt extended but not latched. Exactly like I'd found it that evening. I checked the back door. Unlocked. I always lock it. Always. But the knob turned freely in my hand. I locked it. Checked every window. Every other door. Turned on all the lights. Sat in my living room until sunrise, baseball bat across my lap. Nothing else happened. But here's the thing that kept running through my mind. When I checked my back door that night, when I found it unlocked, I noticed something. The interior doorknob was wet. Not damp. Wet. Like someone with sweaty palms had been gripping it, holding it, waiting. And when I called out from upstairs, when I said hello into the dark, they'd finally let go. Walked out, closed the screen door behind them. The next night, I installed a chain lock on the front door, got a rubber wedge for the back, went to bed with my phone in my hand and a knife from the kitchen on my nightstand. At 1:04 a.m., I heard it again. Thud. But this time it wasn't coming from downstairs. It was coming from inside my bedroom closet. I didn't move. Couldn't move. Just stared at my closet door in the dark, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. Thud. Same sound. Same rhythm. Wood against wood. Someone was inside my closet, bumping against the door from the inside. My hand found the knife on the nightstand. I stood up, turned on the bedroom light. The closet door was closed, same as I'd left it. I walked over, gripped the knife tighter, yanked the door open. Empty. Just my clothes hanging there. Boxes on the shelf. Nothing on the floor. I checked behind the hanging shirts. Nothing. But I could smell something. Cigarette smoke. Faint, but definitely there. I backed out of the closet, checked the window. Locked. I went downstairs, checked both doors again. Everything was secure. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. The next morning, I looked at my closet in the daylight. Tried to figure out where that sound could have come from. That's when I noticed the back wall looked slightly off. There was a seam I'd never paid attention to. I pressed on it. The panel shifted. Behind it was a narrow crawlspace, just wide enough for someone to squeeze through. My hands went cold. I got a flashlight, looked inside. The space ran along the wall for maybe 8 feet, then turned. I could see scuff marks in the dust. Recent. I followed the crawlspace. It led to the hallway, then down to the basement level. Ended at a small access panel near the foundation. The panel was unlocked, pushed open from the inside. Someone had a way in and out of my house I didn't even know existed. I closed everything up, screwed the panels shut, pushed furniture against the closet, called a contractor the next day. He sealed the crawlspace entrance from the basement, reinforced the closet wall. $2,000 I didn't have, but I paid it. Nothing's happened since then. No sounds, no smells, no evidence anyone's been inside. But I can't stop thinking about those scuff marks in the crawlspace dust. How worn they were. How many times someone must have crawled through there to make tracks that visible. All those nights I slept a few feet away from that back panel, never knowing someone could push through it whenever they wanted. The contractor told me crawl spaces like that are common in older houses, usually sealed up during renovations, but sometimes people miss them. He asked if I wanted him to check for any others. I said no. I don't know why I said no. Maybe because I was afraid of what else he might find. Or maybe because some part of me didn't want to know how long this had been going on. How many times they'd been inside. What they'd seen. What they'd been waiting for. I still live here. Can't afford to move. The lease isn't up for another 8 months. But I don't sleep in my bedroom anymore. I sleep on the couch in the living room, where there are no closets, no panels, no hidden spaces. And every night before bed, I check the front door. Make sure the bolt is actually latched, because I keep thinking about that first day. Coming home to find it unlocked. How easily it opened. How someone had turned the bolt, but left the door unsecured. Like they were testing whether I'd notice. Like they wanted to see how careless I really was. And I didn't notice. Not until it was too late. If you made it this far, you're already part of the Grave Hour. Tap subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss when the next nightmare drops.